This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! Whoa, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. Nuggets got the win last night, extending that Lakers series at least one more game. Phillies bullpen blows up again yesterday. Eagles have more injuries to talk about today as they prepare for the Cincinnati Bengals this Sunday. A college football team again has a game canceled. The Houston Cougars have now had 4 home openers canceled already this year due to COVID. Not them getting COVID, all their opponents having COVID protocol and other testing issues. Oh, and by the way, Eagles head coach answered a pretty simple question this way today.
Some of the throws that he's missing are sort of like layups. What could be the reason for some of those easier misses that he's missing?
Have you played quarterback in the National Football League?
I have not, Doug.
Okay. They're not layups. There ain't a throw out here that's a layup. And so, some of it is just timing with young guys. Some of it is just, Carson just being, not accurate at that particular time. It could be that there's a defensive guy that flashed a hand where he's, got to change his arm angle at the split second. There's all kinds of reasons for accuracy, and these are things that we continue to work on and will continue to work on, the entire season.
Good grief. That's where we are right now. Have you played quarterback in the NFL? No, I have not. Well, let me tell you, they're not easy. They're not layups. They're not easy throws. That's Doug Pederson's answer to the question earlier today. So we got a lot to get to this hour. To Weinberg Wednesday. We got Dave Weinberg, veteran Eagles writer. He's covered Doug Pederson. Well, he covered Doug Pederson as the quarterback at Philadelphia and as the head coach in Philadelphia. We'll get his perspective on the Eagles and Doug Pederson as well coming up in about 12 minutes from now. PlaySugarHouse.com text board is open, 609-403-0973. And before I get to the Eagles, I do have to address the other news that came out a little earlier today. Mike Gill and Hunter Brody spoke with Keith Smith of Yahoo Sports, and he had the news earlier today that the Sixers are already informing teams that they hire Mike D'Antoni, that they're going to be making trades. Is basically what it comes down to. And let me tell you something. After talking to Dave McMenamin yesterday, and after listening to other people who cover the league, the last person I want in a Sixers sideline is Mike D'Antoni. This guy has literally never gotten to an NBA Finals. He's bounced around the league. His whole career has basically been a roller coaster. He has success in Phoenix. He didn't have as much success in New York with the Knicks. He pretty much failed completely with the Lakers out in LA. He got to Houston. Thank goodness he has James Harden, or who knows what he would be out there in Houston. The guy is a complete byproduct, in my eyes, of his environment. I don't think he's really elevating a team that much at all. And now he's a finalist for the candidacy of this job, and to the point where the Sixers would even consider alerting teams saying, hey guys, just to let you know, if we hire this guy, we might need to make a trade with you. The fascination and the obsession with the retread coach baffles me to no end. And listen, there are some people on Sixers Twitter who are not reporters and who do not work in the NBA who are just as bad. Because for every time I hear about how we need new people, we need fresh blood, we need to give people opportunities, the same people seem to be tweeting Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy, now Mike D'Antoni. I don't understand the obsession with bringing in dude who's already had 4 or 5 chances to coach. Very rarely does a guy eventually win a championship after bouncing around 100 times, okay? Unless your name is Larry Brown or Rick Carlisle, it almost never happens that a coach bounces 3, 4, 5, 6 locations and then wins an NBA championship. Because typically by then the league has you figured out, and typically by then people know what you're bringing to the table. The fact that the 76ers think that Mike D'Antoni is a good idea really makes me question their analysis of basketball. I'm sorry. I don't understand the obsession with bringing in a guy who's had 100 tries already. And it's not that I think that Tyronn Lue is an amazing coach. But I haven't heard a single person have anything bad to say about Ty Lue except for the Joe Schmo who turns around and says, oh, LeBron won that championship with him. That's the only thing I've really heard about Tyronn Lue. Well, guess what? Tyronn Lue is one of only 2 NBA coaches to win an NBA championship with LeBron James. LeBron James has been to the NBA Finals with Mike Brown, Eric Spoelstra, David Blatt, and Tyronn Lue. Well, guess what? He didn't win a championship with Mike Brown. He didn't win a championship with David Blatt. And I don't think it's a coincidence that LeBron has been through all the coaches that he has, and he's only had success with a certain number of them. LeBron, for every job that he has had as an elevator, an assist man, a leader, as a guy who brings up people, a guy who supports his teammates, and all the stuff, he's only won a championship with 2 head coaches. Ty Lue is one of them. You really can't do much worse because let's see here. Tyronn Lue has more NBA championships than Jeff Van Gundy, Stan Van Gundy, Mike D'Antoni, Mark Jackson combined. None of those guys have a ring on their finger. Tyronn Lue has a ring as a player and as a coach. But if you're going to tell me that Mike D'Antoni is the best option for the Sixers team, then you and I are not watching the same NBA. PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board is open 609-403-0973. You'd think I'd be this passionate about the Phillies being an absolute dumpster fire, but frankly, I'm not 100% that passionate about it because I gave up on the Phillies a while ago. This team has been blowing my mind with how pathetic they are. And you know what? I don't care if they are as tired as some people may think they are. All the doubleheaders. Guess what? Half the league is playing doubleheaders because half the league has had issues when it comes to scheduling because of COVID-19 pandemic. Get with the program. You're a major league pitcher. You're a major league hitter. You got a guy yesterday who's a mediocre pitcher in Voth for the Nats, and you can barely get anything off of him. Yes, I understand that Aaron Nola had a bad day at the office, but your hitters are playing bad too. Now, I don't want to hear about JT Realmuto's hip and Bryce Harper's back and all this stuff. If you're in the lineup, you're on the field, you should be producing, and this team was built to produce. If they can't get the job done, then there's one person to blame and one person alone. It's the front office. But I can't get as upset about that as I am about the Sixers situation because the Sixers, I know what I'm looking at. I can wrap my mind and head and understanding of the game around what I see going on in the NBA. Baseball, I look at every team in baseball and I understand what they're good and what they're bad at. I understand why they're good. I understand why they're bad. I understand when I'm watching the A's and the Dodgers why they both won their divisions. Right? I understand why a team like the White Sox or the Indians or a team like the Rays or why the Yankees are on a hot streak because they're just bashing the ball out of the ballpark, right? The Phillies, I have no comprehension of what I'm looking at. It's like they don't know how to play baseball sometimes, i.e. Mickey Moniak. The fact that this organization thinks that Mickey Moniak should be out there playing is a complete embarrassment. So the Phillies, I can't get too mad because all I can think about is just fire Klintak and McPhail. That's really all that matters at this point. Because in a city where the Flyers found a way to get their goaltender and make a playoff run, in a city where the Philadelphia 76ers had the tank for a couple of years to get 2 all-star players in Embiid and Simmons, in a city where the Eagles hired Chip Kelly, fired him 3 years later, brought in Doug Pederson, won a Super Bowl, and they've gotten 2 more playoff appearances despite having about 20 gazillion injuries, what it seems like. The Philadelphia Phillies can't figure out what a good baseball player is. 609-403-0973, the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. We will get more into those Eagles coming up with veteran Eagles writer Dave Weinberg. He's covered the Eagles for over 26 years. We'll get his perspective on Doug Pederson, on the Philadelphia Eagles, and more coming up here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Game Night being brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call. With 4 convenient locations to serve you, visit them online at gmslaw.com. Of course, tonight also on 97.3 ESPN at 8 o'clock, coverage begins. Heat Celtics. Can the Celtics get another win, or will the Heat extend their lead to 3-1? Find out tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN FM.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Well, I think adversity hits in many different ways. In these first couple of weeks, it's hit us more so with turnovers, right? Offense is turn the ball over, defense has to go back out. First couple of weeks, it's been primarily on a short field, and being able to handle that adversity and really, I don't point the finger at one particular guy. I just think it's the entire team.
What does it even mean at this point? Can't blame a particular guy. It's the whole entire team. Well, yeah, the whole entire team is 0-2 right now, Doug. Thanks for the enlightenment. Doug Pederson earlier today, his press conference. This is Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig on a Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg joins us each and every Wednesday to talk Eagles and more around the sports world. Dave, how you doing on this Wednesday?
Doing well, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So, Doug Pederson had some very interesting answers to the media the last couple of times he's sat down with them. And, Dave, you're someone, you covered Doug as a coach. You covered him also as a player when he was here as a quarterback as well. And it seems like Doug is definitely frustrated with how things are going, not just because of his answer when he asked the reporter earlier, do you play quarterback in the NFL? I think it's also because of the fact I think Doug genuinely doesn't have a specific answer to the problems going on right now.
Yeah, this is kind of like the first time I've ever seen this out of him. He usually has not the answers, but he usually is pretty sure of himself, seldom loses his composure and is cool. And the fact that he kind of lashed out a little bit, I guess half jokingly, but still, that's kind of a sign that he might be, I don't want to say panicking a little bit, but he seems like he's, like you mentioned, frustrated, concerned that the team has gotten off to such a lousy start. And you're right, I don't know that he has the answers for it, but he's got to figure it out pretty quickly.
The big conversation this week among a lot of people, Dave, and I love to know your perspective, is Carson Wentz. My opinion, I think he's stubborn. I think that he obviously is making plays that are outside the playbook. Even Doug said the throw to J-Jaw in the end zone was unacceptable because it was on the back end of the play. So Carson Wentz, what is your perspective on him after these first 2 games?
Disappointed. I think that I always thought that he had the potential to be an elite quarterback. He showed signs of it in 2017, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe he's hit his ceiling, that this is as good as you're going to get from him. He's 5 years into his career now, seems to be regressing based on the first 2 games anyway. 4 interceptions in 2 games plus a fumble. He's clearly not the same quarterback he was even a couple of years ago. Now, I don't know whether it was the injuries kind of just caught up with him or lack of experience because of the injuries or his mindset. Like you mentioned, he seems to be very stubborn, set in his ways. And finally, I think I hate to admit it, but I think that the shadow of Nick Foles has really taken its toll. I think, even though he's been gone a couple of years now, I still think that that's something that he deals with on a daily basis, a weekly basis. And he's got to find a way to just, get rid of that and get back to what he's capable of doing, but he hasn't been doing it so far.
What about also the shadow of the fact that, Doug mentioned earlier this week of all the quarterbacks he's worked with, and it seems like that, all the quarterbacks he's worked with, they seem to be able to, lack of a better term, be more willing to listen to the coaches than Carson is. And I just have to wonder, maybe it was overestimated how much of a listener and how coachable Carson Wentz is.
Yeah, might be right there. Yeah, it was kind of odd that he would bring that up the other day. And Nick, I remember in 2017 when he took over, Doug, went out of his way to point out that he's retailored the offense to take advantage of Nick's strengths, calling plays that he's more comfortable with. The two talked all the time, very open line of communication between the two. And I don't know that that's there with Carson. I do remember, I don't know if they were like unfounded reports, but I do remember Carson kind of balking a little bit when he took over in 2018, saying, he's a different quarterback, doesn't want to run the plays that Nick ran sometimes. So I think that might be getting to him a little bit. That, like you said, he is a stubborn guy, prideful guy, and they have to figure out a way to open up the communication between Doug and Carson. You would think it would be pretty open because Doug was pretty much responsible for him coming here. So it's a really strange relationship. It seems to be deteriorating a little bit.
Yeah, and they better figure it out soon because to me, if it wasn't for Wentz's 2 interceptions versus Washington doesn't have a chance to come back in that game. I mean, they had a great drive going down the field, and then he chucks that ball into the end zone. And all I keep going back to is, Dave, remember how we kept hearing how Wentz's idol was Brett Favre, right? Well, the last time I checked, Wentz is in his 20s. So he didn't see the entirety of Favre's career. And I think Wentz maybe fell in love a little bit too much with Favre's highlights without seeing the highs and lows of what made Favre become the multiple-time MVP that he was.
Yeah, I mean, Brett was very much a risk taker, a swashbuckler, and he threw a bunch of interceptions too to go with the touchdown passes. And yeah, he might have been enamored a little bit with Brett a little bit too much. Essentially growing up in North Dakota, and I guess everybody there was either Vikings or Packers fans, and he kind of idolized Brett as a kid, and it's but he's not the same kind of player, I don't think. Carson's a big, strong, physical kind of guy, but he's not really a scrambler per se. I think that he'd be better off he's got to bottom line, he's just got to play smarter football. You can't hold on to the ball and try to make an heroic play when the one's not there to be made. You can't make this kind of questionable decisions like he did with that throw into the end zone. You just have to be a better, smarter, more accurate quarterback than he's been so far.
Dave Weinberg joining me here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Dave, let's talk about the injuries that all came up today. We know that Jalen Reagor is going to miss time with that injury to a ligament in his hand. We know that Fletcher Cox, there's questions about, some people are saying it's abdominal. Some people say it's an oblique. Either or, Fletcher, he's an important part of this defense. But the defense has given up about 32 points a game, so who really knows how much of an impact he has had on the defense. So, looking at the injuries with Reagor and Fletcher Cox, assuming that they both are going to miss time, what is your perspective on this team heading into the game versus the Bengals?
Well, I mean, Doug has always done and Jim Schwartz have always done a pretty good job of overcoming injuries. They always have that next man up attitude, and it served them pretty well over the last couple of years. But the injuries have really started to pile on this team, and you can add Isaac Somalo there being out for a few games now at the guard position, so they have to revamp their offensive line even more. Jalen was off to a pretty encouraging start as a rookie, but now he's going to be out. And like you said, Fletcher Cox is supposed to be the anchor of that defensive line. He certainly hasn't played up to it to this point, and maybe the injury is part of that. But yeah, I'm starting to wonder. I mean, I originally thought that they'd be able to handle the Bengals okay, that they'd get that first win. But now that you hear these kind of reports coming out, I'm not so sure.
You mentioned Jim Schwartz. He actually said yesterday some very interesting things. He took a lot of the blame for their loss. He said that he had the guys' attention too divided. He used the term, you chase 2 rabbits, you catch none. I enjoyed that. Anecdote. I know some of the people who cover the team were like, "What does that even mean?" But whatever. Anyway, and I appreciate Jim. Okay, maybe I got a soft spot for the guy because he kind of speaks my language football wise. I'm a defensive guy when I played football as a kid, and I appreciate the fact the guy's taken some responsibility. And if he makes a weird analogy, let him.
Yeah, he's a very colorful kind of guy. I mean, he does make some comparisons that are kind of outside the box sometimes. He loves to draw on baseball analogies a lot too. But yeah, he's taken the brunt of the blame, and I guess to a point it's probably true. But then again, the old adage is, the coaches aren't the ones who make the tackles or grab the interceptions or throw the touchdown passes or what have you. So, he might be putting the players in wrong positions. I'm not so sure about that. I think it's up to the players to make the most of what Jim gives them. The defensive line has been a huge disappointment to this point. Having a lot of trouble getting to the opposing quarterback, really haven't wreaked much havoc up there. And until they get that straightened out, I think this defense is still going to continue to struggle.
Do you put any value into what people are saying that, because there was no preseason, because of the way the offseason was, that the Eagles weren't able to work out some of the glitches and the issues in the preseason like maybe they have in the past?
I place zero stock in that because every team was in the exact same situation, and I don't. They were supposed to be in a better spot because they had their entire coaching staff coming back. I mean, basically, had a lot of the veteran players returning who know what's expected of them, are familiar with the system already. So theoretically, they were expected to hit the ground running, but it's been the exact opposite to this point. But I don't place any credence in their lack of preparation because every other team had the same situation.
Yeah, and also college football has been doing this for years. College football doesn't have a preseason, and they start week 1, and they're usually okay. Although some of the teams the past couple of weeks have looked pretty rugged out of the gate, but that's neither here nor there. And when I look around the NFL, Dave,
is that a shot at my Appalachian State team?
No, that was actually a shot at my horrible pick last week of Oklahoma State and Tulsa hitting the over when both teams left the offenses on the bus before they walked down the field.
I gotcha. Yep.
Your team actually showed up the week before. They lost to an okay team. I make a pick because I'm thinking you got two teams, Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard, that offense, Tulsa, they were returning almost the entire offense. And both those teams at one point, it was just 7-0 for the first half.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious what's going to happen now that, the Big Ten and I guess the Pac-12 are going to start playing now. I'll be curious to see how those teams perform. They've had even less preparation time than the others. So it's going to be an interesting college football season this year.
But back to the NFL, I just look around the NFL and I just don't understand where it's going wrong for the Eagles because of the fact that, again, you mentioned everyone else in the same boat, and the Chiefs, they've come out on fire for the most part. I mean, you look around every team around the NFL, it's the Eagles, it's the Vikings, and it's the Texans. They're like the three teams that don't even look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I'm as befuddled as anybody. I really don't have an answer for it. If Doug doesn't, then I certainly don't. I don't know if it's I hate to bring it up, but I think there might be like a leadership void there. Everybody, Malcolm certainly played terribly the other night for the Saints, but he was regarded as kind of like the heart and soul of the Eagles defense. And Carson, as the quarterback, he's supposed to be the leader, but he doesn't really come off that way to me. He's he's really like down to earth. And when you try to tell people that you're the leader, that means that you're not. It's the guys who don't really say much. That's kind of their actions speak louder than their words that I have more faith in. And I just don't know that they have, especially on the offensive side, I don't think they have that guy that can carry the team through the adversity, and until they have to find that somewhere. Hopefully Carson will be that guy for their sake. But other than that, because if not, then they're going to be in serious trouble.
Dave Weinberg joining us. Weinberg Wednesdays on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Check out his extra point columns about the Eagles and all things around sports over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Speaking of sports, I wanted to get your opinion on the U.S. Open this weekend. They actually had their lowest viewership for a major over a weekend since 1987. And you have to blame the fact that they scheduled it on the weekend when there were other things to watch. And I have to assume that, golf is usually a sport that, does well in terms of viewership for the majors. And there wasn't a lot of people who saw, Bryson, get that major win there.
Yeah, I would put that on the scheduling. You're right. If this was held in the normal time frame. I would assume that the viewership would have been much higher. But you're going against the NFL. You're going to lose that every time, and even with college football now too. But yeah, I mean, I watched it. I was riveted, and I thought it was tremendous that the Bryson DeChambeau was able to do that. Very, very rarely hitting a fairway, but just like kind of overpowering the golf course. But beyond that, he's not just a power player like everybody wants to talk about his, gargantuan drives and everything. But he's a, he's a good player. He's not. There's more to his game than that, and he does things unconventionally that kind of rankles a lot of people. Plays, takes a scientific approach to the game. Plays a little slower than some people would like, but congratulations to him. He put on a tremendous performance.
You mentioned his style of play, and people say about it, and I just got to ask you because I'm not the golf aficionado like someone like you are. I'm more of the casual viewer. I just wonder. My big question is he a one-hit wonder, or is he a guy that can genuinely be a contender year in and year out?
That's a tough one because there's been so many guys that you think they're going to be, serious threats. Jordan Spieth, if it comes to mind immediately. Brooks Koepka last year, but now he didn't even play in the U.S. Open because of an injury. It's really tough to win on that PGA Tour, and congrats to him for pulling it out. But he's going to have a tough fight in front of him to win, even another major, really. And week after week, there's like 10, 20. Even 30 guys that are capable of winning a tournament. So it's really, I'm not ready to say that he's like the next great thing until he actually, strings a couple of victories together.
Also, what do you think about the fact that, seeing what happened with the U.S. Open with its schedule, now the Masters is going to be in November. I got to wonder, what is the viewership going to be like for what I believe for the mainstream golf viewer, the person like me who I don't watch every tournament, but I follow. I'm interested. I want to see what's going on. For someone like me on a weekend of the Masters in November, NFL, college football. I mean, I don't know how much attention for the casual fan, the mainstream fan is going to be there even for the Masters after what happened with the U.S. Open.
Yeah, it might not be. I mean, everybody associates April with being, the Masters week. There, that's a special time of year for, even the casual golf fan. And, I'm sure they'll get their share of fans to watch, but I wouldn't expect the viewership to be tremendous. I think it'll be probably much less than previous Masters tournaments, just because of like you said, it's happening in November, and everybody's sports attention is focused on other things.
I mean, at least by then there won't be any more baseball, there won't be any more NBA, NHL. It would just be golf and football. So you think maybe they would have a better chance, just in theory, right?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but not much, I don't think, because football is the be-all and end-all when it comes to that time of year. And, everybody's focused on the NFL, college football, like you mentioned. I'm sure they'll glance at it here and there, but I don't know if they'll be like riveted to the TV on Sunday, unless, of course, maybe if Tiger's in contention, because everybody loves to watch him. If he's in the running for the tournament, then maybe they'll get more. But if it's Bryson DeChambeau or what have you, I don't know if the casual fan will be tuning in.
You mentioned college football. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about something with the schedule of college football, because of all these things being scheduled, the Big Ten starting late, the Pac-12 is talking about resuming, the MAC's coming back, the Mountain West is coming back, and because of that, more and more games are being pushed down the road, and a date that is usually isolated for just Army-Navy is now loading up with more and more games. The Big Ten going to have a full slate that day. Virginia Tech got rescheduled for that day. There's conjecture that's the weekend for the Big 12 championship potentially. What are your thoughts on a day that used to be, set aside for just one of the greatest rivalry games in college football? Something as a part of Americana is now going to have a crowded field on its day.
Yeah, that's truly a shame, Josh. I mean, that's the one event that I've always wanted to attend and never got an opportunity to do so. But you're right; it's so steeped in tradition, and just even before the game, when you watch and you see the cadets and the police from the different academies marching into the stadium and filling the stands. It's just a special moment, and it's a shame that it'll be watered down a little bit because, like you mentioned, all the other conferences, starting up, so now there's going to be more games. You're right, that should be reserved just for Army Navy, and it's a really shame that it won't be. Hopefully next year they can get back to the regular schedule.
Yeah, because, this whole year, I understand 2020 has been turned on its head, but it just feels like, there was something, I don't want to get too ridiculous, but there was something, special and something unique about Army Navy, and now that you're going to have a loaded day of college football. And listen, as much as I love college football, I almost feel like it's like almost infringing on someone's territory a bit.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I don't think it's ridiculous at all. Like you said, it's steeped in tradition. It's a very special time of year, a special game where you got guys who graduated from Army and Navy, even people who served in the Army and Navy that didn't go to the academies. They all have a rooting interest in that game, and it's it's a big deal to them, and it should have its rightful spotlight on that day. And the fact that it won't this year, it is a shame.
He's Dave Weinberg. Joins us every Wednesday for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Also check out his columns over at 97.3ESPN.com. He posts after every Eagles game his thoughts and perspectives on the game. And as all guests, he appeared today on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
Well, thanks, Josh. I appreciate you having me.
Josh Hennig here, Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Being brought to you by SHM Financial. Are you quickly approaching or in retirement? Well, don't get overwhelmed. Contact SHM Financial. Give them a call at 800-MONEY-SHM or visit them online at shmfinancial.com. PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board is open. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Eagles, they're 0-2. Sixers. Mike D'Antoni's a finalist for a job that I don't think he should get at all. Phillies, well, Bryce Harper hit a home run. Are they gonna maintain that lead? Probably not. They're probably gonna find a way to blow that up. College football, just days away. The debut of the SEC, by the way, you can catch Ole Miss versus Florida, the opening of SEC college football weekend this Saturday at 12 right here on 97.3 ESPN. So we got a lot of sports on the docket. Of course, NBA playoffs tonight, Celtics and Heat. Of course, the Heat, they're leading 2-1 right now. Can they make it 3-1? Will the Celtics tie the series up? You got to wait and find out today at 8 p.m. right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, Game Night continues next on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Text board is open, 609-403-0973. Of course, it's the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Place your legal sports bets at PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now and then match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Bryce Harper's back on base. They keep saying, they said earlier today, the report was he has a back problem, right? That's such an open-ended thing to say. Oh, he's dealing with a bad back. I mean, is it the lower back? Is it the upper back? Is it muscle-related? Is it spine? Is it nerve-related? To say someone's got a back problem or their back is bothering them is such an open-ended thing. I'm not even sure what to do with that information. The guy hits a home run, gets on base again. Of course, you don't know exactly what someone's dealing with as the Phillies go up 2-0 now. Although I still have faith that they're actually going to keep that 2-0 lead. I mean, what a disappointing season this has been for the Phillies. Baseball took forever to start. You had players and the owners arguing over money in games. They finally get started. Then the Phillies have that hiatus of games because of the COVID outbreak for the Marlins. So the Phillies got to sit around and get all their COVID tests back, and they got to have multiple tests in a row with negatives for they can get back out there and play. And they finally get back out there and play, and they're, they have an atrocious bullpen. They make some trades. It helps for a little bit, but then the bullpen implodes again. Now you got Harper and JT Realmuto playing injured. I don't know what to do with this team. I'm just at the point where I think Clintack and McPhail got to go. I don't think that it's good enough anymore. I don't think that their reasoning for what they're doing with the team, the rationale for what they're doing. I mean, Mike Gill has brought up before, nobody knows what Andy McPhail actually does. Matt Clintack, his reasoning for different things just seems to be completely just bizarre. I don't know if Clintack was ever really ready for the job, right? You know, the Phillies GM job was Matt Clintack's first job as a general manager in baseball. And I genuinely wonder, you know, if Clintack was ever really ready for the job, right? You know, he was an assistant with the Angels before the Phillies. He was a guy who was hired because of his connections to Andy McPhail. At the time, he was the 11th. He was the youngest GM in Phillies history, and he was the 11th youngest in baseball history. And just because he spent 4 years as an assistant GM, and before that he was the director of baseball operations of Baltimore, I understand why he was hired. But as time goes on, the more I wonder if this guy really was ever fully equipped to be the right man for this job. And I'm genuinely just wondering, because I hear his explanations. I see the moves they make. I don't understand why they thought that this team was good enough as currently constructed. They sold us all a bill of goods, right? They came into our lives with their fancy press conferences and their suave attitude, and they told the whole fan base and they told the whole city and they told the whole region that they want to contend for championships and they want to win, and how they're trying to put together the best team to win, and how every move that they make is with the idea of trying to make the playoffs and get back to the World Series. But yet, every move that they've made is the opposite. I mean, realistically, how many of Matt Clintack's trades has he actually been the beneficiary of? If JT Realmuto walks this offseason, which is a possibility, you gave up a talented prospect in Sixto Sanchez and a very young catching prospect in Jorge Alfaro for a guy because you had 2 years of control over him before he had to walk. I mean, the rationale is just absolutely pitiful and horrible. By the way, Realmuto's playing first base because he's got some sort of hip issue. The hip flexor is keeping him from getting down to the catcher's crouch. I mean, it's just a mess. I mean, this whole Phillies season is a mess. At this point, I don't even know who I'm more frustrated with. I'm more frustrated with the Phillies and their ineptitude. I'm more frustrated with the Sixers and the idea that they would want to hire another retread like Mike D'Antoni, because half the league hires retreads because nobody was actually hire and interview anybody that's different and unique. Am I more frustrated with the Eagles because Carson Wentz is stubborn and the players have gone out there and put up a poor performance for 2 straight weeks now? I don't know who I'm more frustrated with in Philadelphia. And by the way, speaking of frustrated, how about Houston? I mentioned this earlier. So the University of Houston has had another game canceled. This is the 5th game that Houston has had canceled, and it's either their 3rd or 4th home opener, that was supposed to be at their building they've had canceled. They haven't been able to play a game this season because almost every single one of their opponents has had issues because of COVID protocols or because of positive COVID testing. I feel bad for them. I really do. Because you see college football happening every weekend. And I understand every weekend there are games being postponed and there are situations that everyone is working through. Now Arkansas State and Tulsa's game has been postponed because Arkansas State says they the amount of unavailable players they have for a specific position group does not allow us to safely play the game. This whole situation with college football is just such a mess. I feel bad for them. I really do. So I don't even know who or what to be more frustrated about at this point. I really don't. I don't. Just, all you can do is hope for the best at this point, because you look around sports. Honestly, you know what? I'm gonna put the brakes on right there. I'm gonna do a change of course. I'm not even gonna be frustrated anymore. We should all be happy we have sports, because we went through so many months without it. We went through so many months of us getting on, and me and Mike Gill and Hunter Brody and Billy Schweim and everybody on television and everybody in the media. We would get up here and we would sit here and say, you know what? Is there going to be sports? We would give our reasons why or why not, right? And we would have these discussions, just spinning in circles and going on and on and on. And then we get sports back, and then we have things to discuss and we have things to break down. I can sit here and complain about the Phillies. I can sit here and complain about the Sixers. I can sit here and complain about all these things. Realistically, we should be grateful for what we have, despite how frustrating some of these things are. I've completely changed my mind. Completely changed my mind. We should be grateful. I'm not even that upset anymore. Not even that happy. Unhappy. For as frustrated as I am, for as frustrated as this team may make me, you know what? I'm going to be grateful. Because you know what? It doesn't matter that you could have had DK Metcalf instead of JJ Arcega-Whiteside. It doesn't matter that you could have had Sixto Sanchez instead of JT Realmuto on the Phillies this year. It doesn't matter that if Ben Simmons was healthy, the Sixers could have made a deeper playoff run this year, right? It doesn't matter that the Flyers' season ended a little earlier than we all wanted it to. I'm grateful it happened. I'm grateful for this year. I'm grateful for all of it. And I mean that sincerely. Because you know what all being frustrated does? It's exhausting. It's exasperating. All right, coming up tonight on 97.3 ESPN, we have the Celtics versus the Heat. This is actually my favorite of the two series. I know the Lakers and the Nuggets have been getting the higher viewership and television ratings, but this is my favorite series because to me, this is the series that actually is close. This is the series that is a great back and forth series, right? This is the series that, I can genuinely enjoy the most. Two-1 series lead for the Heat. Will the Celtics tie it up? Tune in tonight, 8 o'clock, 97.3 ESPN. And how about tomorrow night? Thursday Night Football. Fitzmagic versus Minshew Mania. The beard versus the mustache. It's the Dolphins versus the Jags. The battle of the state for Florida. Well, at least the battle of the animals. I mean, the Bucs aren't animals, so I'll just say the battle of the Florida animals. That's going to be a fun game tomorrow night. We got Andy McNamara going to talk fantasy football tomorrow because of all the injuries going on in football. Who are you starting at fantasy football? Find out tomorrow on 97.3.